Does it tell us?
There it goes.
All right. We are officially live here on Surviving Homeschool on our Friday night live chat. Excited about tonight. We're going to see and give people a minute or two to start joining the conversation because this is not conversation we don't want to get too deep into and have people miss the real content. So
Yeah.
let's give people a second or two.
So you'll see. So yeah, I'm pulling up the live on our feed. Saying hi to folks. See some folks joining us right there.
Oh, good. Welcome.
See, it's telling us who's top, who's where you see how it's coming up right on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll move it over here so that I can point this out. And then we can see them here too. Let's see.
It looks like we have 8 people that have joined us so far.
Hey.
Now we're up to 10.
What's so funny is it doesn't tell us who they are right now.
No, it's not. I only see that you're watching ourselves. We're watching ourselves.
We're watching ourselves.
Yeah,
yes.
It's not telling me who right now.
Yes.
But for everybody that is dialing in, we are experimenting with a new platform for tonight. So if we have technical difficulties, just bear with us. We will come back. We will figure it out. And we will keep rolling with the punches. But yeah, we are experimenting to see what the best platform for us will be in the future.
Say
hi. I see Sandy in the house. I may do a D nice tonight. Sandy's in the house, y'all.
Look.
Pat's in the house. What's up, Pat?
Hey, Amy down. Are you in South Carolina now, Amy? I think Amy's in South Carolina.
So yeah, everyone's joining. Welcome, everyone.
All I need is a turntable, you know.
You want a turntable?
I just need
we could have done that for introduction. Maybe next time.
Could have done that.
Next time.
All right.
Okay, so we've got like 16 people. I think that's enough to start talking. So we advertise this as a from the male perspective chat because a lot of us are not tackling this new effort of homeschooling alone. A lot of us have co-parents that are involved. A lot of us have family members that are chipping in and doing things. So we wanted to get, we've had a lot of females so far on our live chats. And we said, hey, how can we get some men to come in on the live chat and speak with our surviving homeschool audience to give their perspective on some of the questions we've been asking in our questions of the day and some of the how-tos. We've been giving a lot of advice, but what is it that the males are thinking about this new situation? So let's start off by each of our guests introducing themselves and what your relation is to surviving homeschool and whatever you want to share with the audience about yourself and your family. We'll start with Lawrence.
Hey, I'm Lawrence. I live in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm a stay-at-home, work-from-home dad of one child. My wife gets to do what she loves, and I get to do what I love, teaching our daughter. She's 5, so we've only been doing it for a couple of years so far, so I'm still fairly new at it. Looking forward to kindergarten this coming fall. But for me, this whole thing hasn't really affected what we do very much. We just don't get to do the field trips we used to do, which means my daughter's cooped up and crazy. But other than that, we're doing good.
Great. Are we going?
Go ahead.
I'll go. Okay. My name is Rasan Bernard. I'm married to the fantastic Delise Bernard. We've been homeschooling now for almost a decade, and we're in Washington, D.C. We're parents of 3 beautiful children, and I work out of the home, but and my wife works in the home, and this new context for us has really just bolstered why we've done this in the very first place. So it's been a very refreshing experience to see how we can kind of learn from the almost 10 years of experience, share with families but also me now being home, the role I play, and how we all get do this kind of new thing. And so I'm really excited about talking and sharing tonight, and really hearing from others, and so really excited about being a part of this.
I guess I'm up. I'm Vaughn. I live
Yeah,
in
go ahead,
Washington.
Vaughn.
I live in DC as well. I work outside of the home. Have two children that are in my home. 13 years old and 7 years old. I don't know if you want to call what I'm doing homeschooling, but we're just trying to figure it out. And so really new to this experience. And so everybody's still alive right now, and very thankful to the resources like the Bernards and this Facebook group, because it's just been a lot of information that has been helpful for me.
Okay, Rasan, we're going to pass the baton over to you. We're going to let the men kind of have the stage, and so that you guys can feel comfortable. I'm going to even slide out, so you guys can you guys can figure out how you want this discussion to go. So go for it.
Great, thank you, Derek. So, gentlemen, we're kind of in this new space, this new time. I know many people are experiencing this anew. It's a new context. I mean, again, straight early with a little bit of experience, 10 years, if you want to call that a little bit. And Lawrence, you've been home too. Vaughn, this is extremely new for you. I want to start out by asking you, just really, how are you experiencing this? Like, how, if any, has the role that you've played in the past changed, been modified? How are you experiencing this new Corona period, where being home is the mainstay? So, let me ask Vaughn. You go first.
Yeah, I think that it's just different, right? Like on average, maybe we're spending 3 to 4 hours, 4 hours on a good day with my children. Now it's like 24/7. And so, it's just being able to manage both, their academic day, my professional day, trying to fit in some time for myself, finding the time to decompress. I feel like, there's been a lot of positives in terms of the things I believe I've taken for granted, like quality family time. And this is, oftentimes this rat race, we're always racing, feeling like we're trying to do all of these things to provide for our family. When you have an opportunity to spend as much time with them, you realize how much time you've been missing out. And so this has just been a great opportunity for me to reflect on that and to remind myself when we come out, because we have to come out, the kids have to go back to school. But when we come out, we can, I can make sure that I'm not as busy as I have been in the past, and I'm setting time aside to, really be able to spend with my family.
Lawrence, you're in this, and based on your introduction, this is very similar to my situation. This is not necessarily new for you, but how are you dealing with the fact that now your wife is home and everyone's in the house, and the schedule that you maintained over time is being impacted a little bit by this new normal?
Well, yeah, that's the big thing for us. I spent almost a decade as a professional stage manager, and like part of that is getting people to do their job. And so I kind of use that with Evie. So I get her to do her job. So like on a typical day, she'd wake up before I do because I work at night after my family goes to bed. And she knows that we talk about what she's supposed to do in the morning. She does her paper like worksheets and stuff before I wake up, and then wakes me up like an hour later to check her work. And so like, it's just, she's very self-starter. We've been working on this for 2 years. She does stuff. And my wife works as a professional costume designer in was in theater. Now she's in dance, but that keeps her out at weird hours. So she gets home late, and then when she gets home, it's mommy Evie time, and when she gets a day off, it's mommy Evie time. So Evie has just been, my daughter Evie has just been used to this. If mommy is at home, everything else is on hold, and I spend time with my mom. And so now that mom is home all the time, it's all the time mommy Evie time, and Evie loves it. My wife, she is getting used to it because, you know, being around kids all the time, when you're not used to being around kids all the time, especially young children, like my daughter said, she's 5, she just has endless, boundless energy, which is why I set these boundaries for our relationship that my wife is now having to build from scratch. And I just say, I was like, Leslie, if you got to work, say, Evie, go do your schoolwork, go watch a show, go read a book. I need to do my work. And she will. She totally will. And she might fuss or cry the first couple of times, but after she understands that there will be playtime after the work, then it's not a problem. But yeah, for me, I'm just kind of like the audience in the background watching the comedy show and unfolding with my wife and daughter, trying to learn what they need to do with each other, because I don't want to be the one something like you should do this, you should do that, because you know every relationship is different and you just got to figure it out as you go.
Yeah, David, I see you're here. Victor, thank you for being here tonight. It's interesting because I think one of the things that I'm gathering as I put all this information together over these last 2 weeks is kind of the learnings, right? It's like nodes of learning. So what would you both say if you were to give a nugget of advice over these last 2 weeks based on just new observations, based on new patterns, you know, for males at home right now dealing with this, you know, what are some of the advice pieces just based on your experience that you would share? Vaughn, you go first.
I'm sorry. Could you ask that my audio is going in and out? Could you ask?
Yeah. Sure.
Again?
I was saying, given a 2-week period that seemed like 10 years that you just experienced, you know, and you made some observations earlier about just your experience. What would you share as an advice piece for other men in the home right now experiencing the same thing that you've experienced anew? And obviously Lawrence, with, you know, I'd ask you the same thing, but Vaughn, please go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think the is like, don't beat yourself up when things go wrong. You know, especially for people that are new to this experience. You're not going to get it right. You don't have to put too much pressure on yourself. Don't put too much pressure on your children. As chancellor, I closed down school today because I was like, you know what? It's too much. Daddy needs a break. You all need a break. Let's just chill out. And so I think, you know, it's just really take myself to take too serious. I mean, like, I think their education is important. But I just make sure, like, I'm just, you know, I'm not putting too much pressure on any of us. And then the other piece is, I think the time, I won't go into details. We're really looking at like what my schedule looks like, and planning that out has been extremely helpful, so that it gives me, so I'm just not winging it every single day.
Yeah, I love the chancellor title. You know, I often refer to myself as principal. Lawrence, I'm not sure what title you espouse in Mississippi, but maybe you have one.
Well, like over Christmas break, I read a book called The Self-Driven Child, and it really resonated with me. And what it talked about was that parents are more supposed to be like a counselor, or a counselor, I guess. It's someone that's there to help. And like, if you want your child to be self-motivated, which is something I've been working on with Evie for so long, it's about getting the child to buy in. You're there to help when they need help, but you're not there to dictating stuff. And like, as far as advice, every child is different. And so what Vaughn does or what you do and what I do, it's all going to be different because every kid is different, every relationship is different. And like, but yeah, as far as what I see myself as the counselor, like she does her stuff and then she comes gets me when she needs help. And part of that agreement that I want her to do stuff on her own is that she never has to be afraid to ask me for help. And one of the things we're working on with her is being okay with mistakes because she's a perfectionist 5-year-old that does not like to make mistakes. And it's like, no, it's okay. You know, you wrote this letter wrong. You wrote it backwards and that's okay. You just got to write it again. You know, that kind of thing. But.
So Lawrence, one of our viewers asked a question: at what age did she to understand that? Could you?
Oh, very early. When she was 2. Okay, so let me start back at the beginning. I tend to research a whole lot. So when my wife got pregnant, I immediately started researching about babies and children, and I was already working at home at that time. So it was understood that I would undertake the raising of our child, and so that my wife could keep doing what she loves to do. And so one of the things I researched was stuff that was good for children. And one of the things I found was sign language is excellent to build up language skills really early, and that even a child of like 7 months old can tell you what they want. And so like starting like basically at the very beginning, my wife and I, you know, inadvertently, I guess, started getting her to be more self-aware and self-sufficient. It's like, hey, if you want to eat, tell us, you know. And she would, you know, want milk, you know, or food, you know, that kind of thing. And so when she was 2, she was already talking really well, and she started making deals. And that's where the whole self-sufficiency thing really kicked off. Was like we were at a store and she was throwing a tantrum. She was like, "Look, I'm making you a deal. If you behave, this trip's going to take us like an hour. But if you behave, then you're going to get a candy bar when we leave." And that was it. Like that's what she wanted. And I shook her hand, showed her how to shake hands, and she was good that whole hour. And I could hear her under her breath sometimes wanting to say something, wanting to do something, and then she'd go, "No, you have to be good to get that candy. You have to be good." And so a lot of the parenting from that point on that I did with her at home was based on deals, based on reward and consequence, but natural rewards and consequences for good behavior and bad behavior. I mean, right now I'm staring across the room. She has a couple of toys on our mantle that we bought on clearance at Target that if she reads 30 books in a week, she gets that toy.
Wow.
And so she picks out the books herself. We have a big old crate of, you know, Goodwill 25-cent little critter Berenstain Bear kind of books that she reads, and she does that. But yeah, like it's a process. There was no like one moment where it clicked for my wife and I to start doing it, but whatever we did led to her being very self-sufficient. But like it all, if one thing had to have started it was making the deals with her, so she understood like the choices she made had consequences. Or
yeah, and positive incentives too. Can you for our viewers, can you share the name of the book again? What's the title of the book?
Let me make sure. I'm going to bring up Amazon right fast. Just one second. Make sure I got the.
While he's thinking about that, I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like this whole idea about I've learned so much about my kids in the last 2 weeks, right? Like I thought I knew my kids, but maybe not their learning styles as much. And like I learned, like my 7-year-old like loves to learn. Like she's excited about learning, and even on the weekend she wants to learn. My 13-year-old doesn't want to do anything. If it's anything that's above what he's supposed to do, like it's always a fight to get him to do it. And so you know, both in how she can be she can be a lot more confident in her work. And she's like, "Nah, daddy, I got it," you know, and she'll just go and do her stuff. Whereas my 13-year-old, like, it's like, you know, he'll do it and he's like, "All right, daddy, can you check this?" And so it's just really interesting watching both how different they are. But then being able to learn what their learning styles are individually.
Yeah, yeah. You got that book, Lawrence?
Sure. It's called The Self-Driven Child, The Science and Sense of Giving Your Kids More Control Over Their Lives. And it's by Ned Johnson and William Stixrud, PhD. I'm assuming that's how to pronounce that guy's name. But it's The Self-Driven Child.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
You know, interestingly enough, one of the things that we you know, when we talk about our roles as chancellor, principal, counselor, you know, the reality of the honey-do list is still there, right? We, you know, and now the honey-do list is a present reality because you're home all day long. So how are you all balancing, you know, having this new role, or a modified role, or a role that's now, you know, amplified with, you know, doing also the honey-do list or just doing chores in general in the home?
Oh.
Lawrence?
So I'll just go out and say I'm a terrible housekeeper. Like that was never one of my strong suits. So that's something I'm personally working on for me. But it's something I've started wrapping into our schoolwork. So part of being like this self-driven is like, okay, there's chores she has to do. We have ducks in our backyard that it's her job to take care of, you know, give them water and give them feed. And she has to take care of the garden, and we wash dishes together, that kind of thing. As far as like the honey-do list, like the things that are typically that are given to man, like, you know, fix the light bulb, fix the plumbing, that kind of stuff. That's never been really a problem because it always bothers me more than my wife because I'm the one here with the leaky faucet or the flashing light. And so, yeah, that's never been an issue. It's more my wife comes home and is like, so you didn't vacuum. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'll get to it soon. I promise. It was a really rough day. A blessing for this, my wife being home all the time, is that she spends like 4 or 5 hours maybe at a stretch like, okay, I get it. I need a nap. There's no doubt that what you do here is difficult and high energy. That's why you don't get to the vacuuming all the time.
Vaughn, what about you?
I think the most helpful thing that I did, I created a schedule. And I mean, it's a very fluid schedule, but I at least created a schedule to kind of use as a guideline. And so while that schedule pretty much handles the kids' day, the challenges become their schedule and my work schedule. And so like my 7-year-old doesn't care that I'm on a conference call. She's like, Daddy, it's playtime right now, and you're not supposed to be on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to be able to manage those times. But it's also been helpful so that if I know both what's on their schedule and what is on my schedule, normally I can delegate that in the morning to their mom to say, hey, look, you know, I got this going on at this time. I'm going to need you to be focused on the 7-year-old. At least with my son, you know, I can just let him know, listen, don't bother me during this time because, you know, I'm going to be on conference calls. And so he's pretty good with it. But I think, you know, what has been best is really being able to look at my kind of do a forecasting and then be able to delegate responsibilities to try to manage the day better. And then when it doesn't go like I expected it, it doesn't go like I expected it.
Right,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
So I want to, you know, we have a sizable audience tonight, so I want to make sure that I acknowledge them and ensure that they have, you know, their questions answered too. So we want to encourage our audience to shoot away with questions. You know, you talked about this schedule, and you know, it's a great segue into my question about this Groundhog Day reality that we now live. I mean, every day is like Groundhog Day. How do you manage a day that is now protracted? You know, back in, you know, when things were pre-corona, you know, even the homeschool child, I mean, and again, I'm a homeschool dad of a decade. We had set bedtimes, you know, at a certain time, and Delise would come in and say, hey, it's beyond their time. We would be regimented as it relates to a schedule. I mean, I feel like the last 2 weeks, because of this fluid fluidity of the day and the sameness, for lack of a better word, of the day. You know, I look at the time and it's 11 o'clock and the kids are still up, you know, and it's like, whoa, you know, we as parents don't have time for ourselves. And so anyway, I'm just curious for you both in this last, you know, 2-3 weeks, how has the protracted Groundhog Day new experience been for you both? Lawrence?
Well, I do lots of different things. Like right now, the reason I'm unshaven and looking kind of ragged is that I'm doing a satire videos, like a Corona doomsday prepper kind of thing for an auto parts store in Texas. And so I do that at night after everybody's in bed, so I don't have to worry about stuff being, I don't have to worry about noise around the house, you know, when you're trying to film.
Yeah.
And so my schedule has always been insane, which is why Evie gets up and lets me sleep. But like as far as like just the days, again, it's my wife Leslie. I feel bad for her because she's at home much more. I mean, she used to be home like with Evie like 2 or 3 hours a day, and now she's home trying to work, and Evie's just like in there. It's time. We got to do it. And so a lot of my days lately have been just like, come on, you and me, we're gonna go have Poppy Evie time. We're gonna go. I'm Poppy to my daughter. We're gonna go play board games. Come on, you just need to play with me. I need to teach you this board game so mommy can play with us later. But yeah, it's and Evie's energy has just been kind of like in the twilight zone. She never is tired. Used to, like, we didn't have a regimented schedule, but around 2 o'clock she'd pass out, take a nap, and then around 7 or 8 she'd start getting tired, and 9 o'clock she'd go to bed. But she did it on her own. And now, like you say, you look around and it's, you know, for Evie it's like 1 a.m. and she's like, hey, I never went to sleep, I want to read some more books. I'm like, well, then go read your books and leave me alone, okay? You know? But yeah, we never, for homeschool, we never really regimented out, but it has been a little crazy as far as, like you said, it's 24/7. There's no real like marking of the day anymore.
Yeah. No, and as many of our audience, you know, tonight's, you know, they've written in that a schedule is a lifesaver, and I couldn't agree with that sentiment anymore. Vaughn, what about you? How are your days during this Groundhog Day experience?
Yeah, I think the best thing for me is like I try to change it up as much as possible. And so whether it's like just taking a walk in the morning just so that we're all not stuck in the house, or like playing a board game together, letting the kids choose what we're going to eat for the day, and like going through and making sure we have all of the recipes, and like inviting them, you know, into that cooking experience with me. I think we just try to, I'm really like, my 7-year-old can be super creative, and like normally where I would be like, no, not today. Yeah, that doesn't have time. Like now it's like, yeah, what crazy idea are we going? Oh, you want to make gummies today? Let's do it. You know, it's just, all right, whatever. Like the world is yours, so let's figure it out. So that we can, I mean, so that it can be as exciting as possible. Because I tell you, the truth is, most days I don't know what day it is. But they, you know, they all just start to run together, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because you know, I was talking to my son today, and you know, he said, you know, he was asking me what day it was, and for a hot second I forgot it was Friday. I mean, for just a hot second, it's all blended in. I want to acknowledge Shirley and Nicole and Anna and Diane and Lakeisha and Sean and Katie. All of you are joining tonight. Osco, we thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. So we talked about Groundhog Day. We talked about this new role. We gave some advice based on our own experience. Now that we are in this new normal, now that we're in this, what I call this this capsule of time where we're all together, how do you all divvy up responsibilities with homeschool? So let me give you a little bit of context. So my 7-year-old, one of the responsibilities that I hold is that when I come home in the evening, either right before she goes to bed or right before dinner, we carve out 20 minutes of reading time. So my wife has been gracious enough to give me one task to do. She's given me 10 before, and I've failed utterly at executing the 10. So she said, you know what, let me dumb this down to one for you. And so I now read with my 7-year-old every single night. What's funny about this homeschool experience is that it's been hit or miss since we've had this whole Corona thing. Because I'd be like, baby, are you ready to read? And she's like, we can do it later, and later to her could mean 12 o'clock at night, and by that time I'm already comatose. At 9 o'clock, my body shuts down. So anyway, I'm curious about how are you now in this new normal, divvying up those responsibilities. Lawrence, you've been home kind of managing this process. How do you share with your wife the current responsibilities of teaching?
Well, she's actually been more hands-on because she wakes up before I do, because that's her job usually has her waking up before I do. So she's there, and just to save her sanity, she tries to get Evie to do her worksheets and stuff so that Evie can do it. It's not something I asked her to do. It's just something that she's become a little bit more hands-on with. And then at night, it's always been like mommy Evie time. She gives Evie the bath, and then she reads bedtime stories with Evie. Although Evie's she likes a book called Bedtime Math, so it really frustrates my wife because my wife does not like math, and each story has math problems at the end that she then has to figure out. And my daughter insists oh, let's read Cinderella. Okay, we'll read Cinderella. Oh, it's done. Good night. No. Now it's time for bedtime math. So it's either bedtime math or whatever mommy wants to read and bedtime math, but that's just one of the books they're going to read. And so, but that's, yeah. And we haven't really changed anything other than that. We kind of incorporate homeschooling into everyday life kind of thing. I mean, she's 5, so it's kindergarten, and she already knows how to read and she knows simple math. And so it's just a matter of just keep reinforcing that with the stuff we do throughout the day. We do a lot of video games and stuff like that. So it's not really a whole bunch of extra work for my wife. And I try to do that on purpose because she has so much, she still has to do all her work just at home instead of in her nice costume shop. And so that's frustrating for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, and for Vaughn, you have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old. So, Lawrence is dealing with a whole different age group. How's that looking for you? Sharing that responsibility, divvying out that work, sharing that load.
Yeah, I think that mornings, generally, their mom, who's fixing breakfast, and then outside time or a walk or something. And so generally I'm preparing for work, and so she'll take them for a walk, and then when they come back, it's kind of where we have for their academic time. It's worked out where the 7-year-old kind of has some guided time through her teacher, and so they put things online for her and she can go on. And the hardest thing to do with that is her mom, that she's in front of the computer and she's delegated that there. With the 13-year-old, it's a little bit more structured. As I'm generally the one that's helping him with his schoolwork. It's just all right. It's a matter of me looking at what assignments, making sure he's getting them done. If he needs help, then he'll come back. Hey, Dad, I need you to, look at this with me. It's really fluid, but I think that both of us, without necessarily having an explicit conversation of, okay, this is what you have to do, and this is what in the roles that we felt comfortable in and support, then we make sure that we've communicated that to each other. What I have found is I'm surprised, my daughter's not here now, like she always wants to spend time with daddy. Like I would think that like she's always been a daddy's girl, but like it's like 24 hours is not enough. Like, you know, she was before we got started, she was right up on my shoulder. And so like it's never enough time. And even with me all day long with her, like, Daddy, I haven't had any time with you today. What? Like, we've been together all day. And so, you know, I think what she's missing. So when I was outside, you know, when I would work, I would come home and I was making sure to, you know, at least 30 minutes of an hour, you know, it'd just be like daddy, daughter time. And so she's missing that because it's like she has to share me in the rest of the house now. And she's like, wait, like, you know, I still need just me and your time. And so she has totally emphasized that.
Yeah, it's you know, I have a 7-year-old that does believe that we're still connected somehow to her umbilical cord. It may be invisible or not, but you know, I walk in a room and she's right there behind me. It's funny because I think one of the things that I've recognized too is that my role as chief motivational officer for our kids during the pre-coronavirus days. I mean, it's that job on steroids, being home, right? Because they're doing their respective tasks for school. Regardless if I'm on the phone, on a conference call, locked away in a room, following up on emails for work, they're coming in to show me to get approval and a pat on the back that it's completed. So it's all of these kind of touches throughout the day that that may or may not disrupt kind of the series of emails, calls, whatever that you have. So how do you all deal with that? How is that going for you? You know, Vaughn, you say you get up and after breakfast you prepare to get online and start work. How is the series of Daddy, come, let me check in. Daddy, let me, you know, how is that working out for each of you? Lawrence?
That's pretty much how our days always go. Like where she does some work and then comes check in with me, or
we got her checking in on Vaughn right there.
Right there.
Real time. So
yeah, the motivation, like every 2 seconds she does something and it's something exciting, she has to come. One of the games she plays is called Prodigy. It's a math game, and it's really cool. It's like a old school turn-based role-playing game, but instead of just attacking, you have to answer a math problem to successfully attack or whatever. And as you work your way through the game, it gives you badges when you master a certain skill or whatever. And so she'll come in as like, look, I mastered addition, and look, I mastered subtraction. I'm like, well, yeah, you already knew those things. That's why you're mastering them so fast, and it takes you like 5 minutes to do it. But yeah, she definitely, just like what you say, she craves that positive reinforcement. But she will go and just do things on her own between the positive reinforcement. And then of course we spend lots of time together. We do lots of board games and things like that. And we got to work on her being a better loser, because like I'm tired of having to lose all the time. But anyways, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. But that's just like, that's the norm for us. It's not the norm for mom. So
yeah. Michael, who's with us, said, you know, really just supported the comment that, you know, touches are important. You know, that those confirmations of acknowledgement when they walk in and a pat on the back. I mean, I think it's absolutely important. So I want to talk a little bit, Vaughn, you mentioned something earlier, and I don't want to let it pass, and it's communication, right? Because we know that I think we share kind of a unique, the prologue to this statement is that my assumption is that your current role, how you currently operate, is based on who you are and your understanding of kind of your your responsibility in the relationship. So I'm going to put that as a prologue to my next question about communication, because many people find themselves in a place where they had different suppositions regarding like roles, right? Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not homeschooling. Like, that's your thing, you know, or I'm not doing honey to-do lists just because I'm home. That's relegated for the weekends. Like, don't. So there are all these things that are are new given this new context, and people come in it with their own how they are brought up. And so I'm curious, going back to this conversation about communication, right? So Vaughn, you mentioned earlier that you guys just kind of assumed these responsibilities. Like, there was not a time where we sat down and clearly communicated, like, this is how we will operate in this new context. But is that important? I mean, is it important to acknowledge that there's a time now, it's a new context, that there needs to be a reset button on what roles and responsibilities look like, and clearly communicate those, yes, to a spouse that you've been married to 15 years, or to a spouse you've been married 5 years, or to somebody that you're just married to a year. Like, what do you guys think about that? What advice would you give for our viewers, caregivers, just all of that. So all, from everyone who's responsible for someone in the home. Talk to me about what you guys think about how that communication should be. Vaughn, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think like oftentimes, as you mentioned, bring those their own experience, like whose role is A, B, and T, and accepted norms within those households. But now, and so let me stop there. I think in any marriage, it's important to always reevaluate expectations between the husband and wife. And so whether you're doing that every 6 months, every year, like, I think it's important to reevaluate, to sit down, to be able to have a conversation about it and say, hey, listen, like, where I am now, like, maybe we're good, we can continue to move forward, or things. And these expectations need to change. And I don't think stuff that Corona. And so this just kind of where if somebody has been in the marriage and they have been experiencing things that they didn't appreciate, and they haven't been able to communicate them, like an experience like this will only expound the issues that are already going on, in that relationship. And so, the first thing is, like, it's just important to communicate, what your needs are. And nobody can read, or I can't read minds. I don't know about, other folks, but I can't read anybody's mind. And so if there's something going on that I'm doing that is not appreciated, or I'm not doing, then I need to know that, so that I can have the opportunity to at least correct it. And so once that communication, the second thing, especially within this new context, is, okay, we need to really look at, what are these new expectations? And they should be mutually agreed upon between, in that relationship. And I think as long as both parties agree to whatever those expectations are, you at least have a starting place, so that if at some point somebody's not doing what they agreed to, then you can, like, hey, you said you were going to do these things and you're not doing them, versus, you're not doing any. Like, well, and I'm like, I didn't know you needed the support. Like, this is what you've always been doing. How was I supposed to know you were supposed to help? So I think it's just really important, one, to have that conversation, and then two, to make sure there are some agreed upon expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments that we have here, and our friend Mike says, if you're married, you're expected to read minds at least one. He's a better man than I am. I still, to this day, if there's something that you need me to do, you need to tell me directly that you want to do that. And it will be an executable that will be done flawlessly. But other than that, I'm walking right by it. So some of us are better than others. So Lawrence, what about you? How does that work for you as it relates to communication?
So I tend to be pretty blunt and pragmatic when it comes to everything. So my wife and I, we got together in the fall of 2000. Like, that's when we started dating. She's the only person I ever dated. And I think the first thing I said after we started dating was, look, if we break up, we're never getting back together again, just so you know. And so that's pretty much set the tone for everything since then, as far as like, I can be feeling and I can do all that stuff, but also when I think it's something that's important that needs to be known, I'll come out and say it. And it's a work in progress. It's always a work in progress, but like I ask her to do the same for me. It's like, look, I know you think telling me, you know, that I didn't do the dishes right, whatever, that's going to hurt my feelings. And maybe it will, but I won't do them right ever if you don't say, hey, yo, you know, that's top rack only and you melted my plate or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. So it's just, honesty is the best policy, I guess. That's what I do with my wife and my daughter. And it's worked out fairly well. I mean, we fight, everybody fights, but we don't fight hard and we don't fight a lot because when we're honest with what we expect from each other and what we want, then yeah, you're on the same page and you can move forward. And we've worked, you know, a lot of times companies don't let couples work together, but we've worked together in 4 different places. And like we worked together at a bookstore. Like I got hired first and then she got hired on, and they found out we were dating, but then they had no problem with it because we were good together. And then the next place, a boss left and then hired us to the next place they went together, just because we communicate and we were able to say, hey, look, when we're at work, we're not going to do other stuff. And it's just the same thing. Everything is just, we're honest. And sometimes it hurts a lot sometimes, but as long as you're honest, it's coming from a place of love.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to thank Mia and Doreen and Theldra and Tiana, Keisha, Tramilia for joining us. You know, we really appreciate you joining the conversation. I think I want to make sure that I'm clear. You know, it's, you know, for many, many years, being very direct with the task at hand for completion has helped the executable, but it has not gone without me trying to remember what I need to do in order to, or what things need to be in place in order for things to run. So I want folks to really understand the full context. It's not that things don't happen because I need to be told what to do. Exactly. It's as much as I try my best to remember the context in which something happened that I need to then respond in a way in a new context so that it does not happen for my wife or for my kids. I have recognized that in 15 years, I am not that good at that. And so help is necessary to remind me on what to do. So I just don't want, you know, because I think sometimes when we say, just tell me what to do, it doesn't allow us to take the responsibility of being at least intentional with understanding kind of the full context of the home, the family, and those kinds of things. So I just, you know, I said that earlier, but it's not without that context. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear about that. Lawrence, you had something to say?
And for us, yeah, like it's about if you want something specific to do, but it's also that it goes mostly for when it's about feelings, like, because everybody, you know, there's always misunderstandings in relationships and you always end up inadvertently hurting the people you love. You don't mean to, you know, you forgot something you were supposed to remember because you weren't listening correctly, you weren't listening well, you know, or you just lost track of time and you're out way too late and you didn't call and they think you're dead or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff, where it's just being honest about why you're upset. Don't let me come home thinking, oh, everything's fine or whatever, and then pout for 3 days about it. You know what I mean? Like that's the main thing where the honesty works in our family, where it's like, I'll be like, no, look, you're pouting. Why? If you don't tell me now, then I don't want to hear you complain about it later. But it goes the same way. If she catches me pouting, she'll say, "What's wrong? Tell me, why are you angry?" And it's just, we get it out there, because getting it out is better than holding it in.
Yeah. No, honesty is the best policy. Look, we have 10 minutes left. We want to make sure that we have room for questions from our audience, and so I want to make sure that we provide some room for that. So, audience, we're waiting for you to tackle us with some questions here. We got another 9 minutes and 44 seconds. We're wide open, and again, we're not considered the experts. I think this for us is just an opportunity to share our experience and be quite vulnerable about the things that we don't know about this process and what we can learn from it, and how as fathers and dads and males we can come together and talk about this experience and get feedback and support from you all. So please shoot us some questions. Victor Q says, as dads, do you take time after homeschooling to Zoom, FaceTime, chat with friends, or are you wiped out? Vaughn, your question.
I'm reading it down. As dads, do you take time after homeschooling to Zoom, FaceTime, chat with friends, or are you wiped out? I think generally I'm doing that throughout the day, and I'm wiped out. It's just like it makes for a long day, and what I've realized is like I don't really get time to decompress, or I haven't made time consistently to be able to get away, even if it's for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, just to decompress. I mean, the other day, I felt like I had a meltdown because I was trying to go to the store and find some toilet paper of all things. And I went to 3 different stores and I couldn't find it. And I pulled up in front of the house and I was just like, this is too much. Like, I didn't want to go in the house. Like, because I knew everything. I knew all of the walk through the door. And I just wanted to sit in my car for just like, even if it was like for 20 minutes, being asked of nothing me.
Yeah.
So veered away a little bit from the question, but I think I'm always wiped out. But throughout the day, like I said, I try to, I'll send a text, or I have my schedule is flexible enough where I can kind of, get a little bit of that adult time in that I need, that generally I would get, when I'm at work, like for, when with your coworkers, they time often, and so you don't realize once you are in the house for 24/7 how you're going to miss of just being able to kind of be an individual. And I think that's what it feels like is being lost sometimes, is like my individuality.
Yeah. So we have a question about, I want to acknowledge Jeremiah, who's here with us. There's a question about, older kids. How do you, for kids that are 16 and 12, how do you guys think someone who has kids that are older than ours, how can they get involved more without being overbearing? Our eldest will be 13 this year. I think it's a great question. And maybe, given the fact that we don't have kids that age, maybe it's just, again, a supposition of ours. But what do you guys think? Lawrence, what do you think? Older kids not being over.
I have 5 younger brothers that I helped raise because of issues in the family. And like that book I mentioned earlier, The Self-Driven Child, it really helps with like the viewpoints on older kids, where you just have to kind of give them their way a little bit. You have to give them what they can. You have to get them to buy in to whatever you want them to do. Like, so if you want them to do schoolwork, you sit them down and say, you're going to do this schoolwork, I'm going to beat your butt or whatever, that's just not going to work. They're gonna fight harder the more you push, but the more it's like, look, this is your schoolwork. You don't do it. That's the end of the at the end of the year, you're going to repeat a grade, and you're not going to be with your friends. And if that's what you want, that's what you want, and that's on you. You give them options, kind of, to let them see that what they choose, you're going to let them choose, but you're going to let them fail on their own if they don't want help, kind of thing. And it's kind of harsh to say, but with my brothers, that's what it was. I mean, I had one brother that just fell in with a bad crowd. I'm like, look, I'm not your dad. I can't follow you around and make sure you don't break into cars, dude. But that's something you shouldn't do. But if it's something you do, I can't come bail you out, so you're going to be in jail. So these are choices you got to make on your own. You know, and again, it sounds harsh, but like, it helped me get through to my brothers when it was like I wasn't the dad, so I couldn't enforce anything on them. So I had to be there as a partner with them and help them, guide them down the right path. And like, when Evie gets older, that's I can't say for sure, but that's what I'm going to try to do, is help guide them, be the counselor, just do the best I can, but let them make the mistakes they need to make so they can learn to be better people in life.
Yeah. So the next question that we have, thank you, Victor, is when shelter in place is over, what is the one thing that you'll commit doing differently for yourself and for your family? I could say, I can answer. I'll throw my hat in the ring for this one. I think one of the things that I've started doing in 2020 is abandoning presenteeism, and by definition, that really is the act of physically being present but not mentally there. And I think that, Vaughn, to your point earlier, the hidden blessings of all of this, the gems behind all of this shelter in place experience that we have is the richness of family and the richness of spending really time that we take for granted. And there is value in that time. One of the things I like to say is that life is a series of investments. And this investment of added time to our family and being present will yield dividends that the stock market will never, ever bring, that no financial instrument will ever bring, that no job will ever bring. And so I think for me, what this will do for me going forward after this is all done is really instate for me a sense of intentionality about the things that I'm enjoying now with family in this context, and being intentional about replicating that even when it's not required of us to do. And so that's what I would say about that. I'll open it up to you guys. We got, just from a time standpoint, we got about 2.5 minutes left. So anyone want to chime in there? Lawrence, Vaughn?
Yeah, real quick for me, like the family dinner time has been amazing. I probably cooked more the last 2 weeks than I have in the last year, to be honest with you, like just inconsistent. But just be able to sit with the family and to share with one another and to break bread together. And it's something totally that I feel like I had gotten away from. And once the shelter, once we are out of quarantine, it's something that I would definitely want to continue.
Yeah, Lawrence, what about you?
Oh, yeah.
We got about a minute and
a half. We've actually connected more as a family. Like, it's usually been Evie bouncing between me and her mom. Like, I have her all day, her mom gets home, and it's mommy Evie time. It's not family time. And I mean, we spend time as family, we eat together, that kind of thing, but we don't really connect as much as we've been connecting lately because my wife's been home more. And so just we'll be incorporating more game night kind of things where it requires all three of us to be together and engaged with each other, which is something that I didn't even realize, but that we'd been missing.
Gentlemen, I think tonight has been a very rich experience for me. I want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight to really join in this conversation about our new experiences. I think, Lawrence, I'm just really thrilled about meeting you and having you share your experiences. It was very rich for me and very edifying. And Vaughn, I can't say enough about what you shared tonight and what I know about you personally. as a dad and what these new roles that you've taken on over this year. And for our viewers, we really are appreciative of the questions and the comments that were made. And hopefully we can continue to be a resource during this time. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to thank you men for stepping in for Delise and I and kind of hosting this from the male perspective, a perspective that Delise and I could not offer to our surviving homeschoolers. So thank you for being available at 9 p.m. on a Friday night. And Rasan said he's normally conked out at this time. But the conversation was very, very informative, very insightful. And I think just hearing things from your perspective in the different roles that all of you all are playing in your homes today will help other families figure out how to tackle this new effort in homeschooling and balancing work from home as well as just home life in general during this time that we're faced with. So thank you so much. Thanks everybody for your comments, for joining us, and keep that conversation going in the Surviving Homeschool group. And we will be talking to you again soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.